Why do governments think it's okay to use those who are less fortunate as some kind of punch bag? Why? Is it because they're an easy target? Is it because they're defenceless? Is it because the general public don't care? It's quite easy to blame those who are less fortunate. It's everybody else's fault bar the inept governments. Now we've got a new government, and I hope, hand on heart, that they succeed in making the country a better place. But not at the cost of those who are less fortunate. No. And who am I talking about? The disabled. There's a lot of talk flying about at the moment about addressing the economically inactive. Now that would include my son, Matthew, who happens to be disabled. And he was diagnosed when he was 7 years old with a condition called torsion dystonia. Now, if it wasn't for me and my dear missus looking after him, that's our job, don't get me wrong. But if we were the sort to say, well, we can't cope with this, and institutionalised him, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't do that, obviously. But if we were, and didn't want to put the work in, what would that cost? The taxpayer. Makes me wonder, really, what people are thinking. It really does. Sometimes I think some people got the screw loose. And my dear son, Matthew, was diagnosed at 7 years old with a condition called torsion dystonia. He was in and out of hospital and all these different tests. At first they thought it was some form of youth Parkinson's, and then it was I can't remember his name now, but a doctor in Great Ormond Street who diagnosed Matthew with, well, torsion dystonia. Generalised torsion dystonia, which basically a part of his brain's giving the wrong signals to his muscles, so he's all over the place, yeah? And he's also always in pain, he's also always uncomfortable, he just can't get comfortable. He lays on the ground a lot, which causes other problems, with sores and stuff like that. And he can sort of stumble across the floor, sort of walk, but it's usually from one place that he can support himself to another. You see, he's not really that able-bodied. Well, the last government wanted him to be assessed out of his home, which means he'd have to get there, and it's a nightmare for him to get anywhere. Believe you me, it's not easy. Everything is more difficult if you have a disability. So to hear that this government wants to reassess everything, it's the fear and the worry. And it makes the conditions worse, not just for him, but for other people out there as well. People suffering depression and they hear this. All it'll do is make everything worse, not better. Yes, my son is economically inactive. He's very educated, got 2 degrees. He's no fool, I tell you. His brain is, apart from sending out these stupid signals to his muscles, he's a bright chappy. He really is. Well, he's a man now, but, Anyway, we brought him up. Diagnosed at 7 years old. Went through the system. Absolutely brilliant. I've got to give them their dues. They did everything for Matthew. They did everything for him. Whether it be the primary school, they went on to secondary school. Did a huge amount for him. Really open to receiving him as well. Nothing was too much trouble. It's fantastic. Hospital, absolutely brilliant. All the hospitals we went to, all the clinics that we went to, they were all brilliant. And they were fast. They treated him quickly. And it was intensely important. Because, waiting game, that causes more stress, more problems. But this is just my son, right? There are plenty more people like my son, but there's also plenty more people out there who have different conditions. You can't put them all in one box. There's physical conditions, there's mental conditions. For instance, even though I've got, apart from being a bit gone in the head, I'm a bit buggered at the moment. I have fibromyalgia, and that's one of them conditions you can't seem to get pips on very easily. Now I'm in France, so I'm not worried about that. I don't do any what do you call it, social security type stuff, even here in France, even though we're entitled. Because I just don't want to do it. I don't want to start taking that path, and also I don't want to be seen as a sponger. So I do what I can on YouTube and try and earn a few pennies here and there. But I have to manage myself. I couldn't do a 9-to-5 job like I used to. In fact, I used to work 7 days a week. But I couldn't do that anymore. So I'd be economically, not necessarily inactive, but less active. You'd need 2 of me to do the same amount of work. Because I can't do a full day. I suffer all sorts of pain and, oh, crikey, it's anyone who dismisses fibromyalgia, believe you me, one day you might get it. And especially if you're female, because it's more common in women. But it's frustrating. When I hear governments, that all they want to do is just remove our benefits. Well, I ain't got benefits, but like, for instance, for my son. And the thing is, you see, it's all very well saying, let's get them all back into work. But then you're putting the onus on the employer. The employer might not want that. It costs them more money to be able to actually to facilitate them. Because for a start, they might not be as efficient because they might be in a wheelchair, for instance. You can't get away from it. My son would be a darn sight less efficient than somebody who's able-bodied. And then you've got all these other provisions and stuff like that. All this is a tick box exercise. Then you've got those who are currently out of work because they've got some sort of condition, whether it be mental health, and the waiting list for that horrendous at the moment, but also physical conditions, and they're not getting treated because the NHS is screwed at the moment, and hopefully the government could do something about that, but without using the so-called slack in the private sector, because that ain't going to be a solution. All that will draw more NHS staff out of the NHS. You don't think the private sector trains their people up? No, they headhunt them. That's what they do. Why would they want to pay for it? But all they're going to do, previous governments, what they did, and obviously what this particular government's talking about at the moment, yes, they're having all these negotiations, they had discussions about, they had people to come in and talk about what they need. But unless we make it possible for people who are disabled to work, like for instance, my son, although he couldn't do a lot, but let's say for instance he could do 2 or 3 hours a day, he could do something. You've got few people like that working, but then you've got to think about the PIPS payment. You can't remove their benefits because they're not going to. That's not be any good to it. They need flexible. The benefits need to be flexible. Maybe like a declaration system where you declare what you've earned, but you still got to have a little bit of a benefit there. Now you'd still, as a disabled person, let's be fair, you'd still get your mobility and all that sort of stuff because technically you're still disabled. But if you've got physical disability. But people are going to need a hell of a lot of support in the workplace. How is that going to work? Now, don't get me wrong, as somebody who's brought up a disabled child, I would really honour that. I think it'd be fantastic. It's like, I think it's great that we have ADHD and what have you, and, troublesome children in the schools and what have you. In some ways, I think myself, that's absolutely brilliant. In other ways, I say, my dear missus worked in schools, and it was disastrous because it removed at least an hour a day of education for all the other pupils for one child. So all these things don't necessarily work. You think that in the workplace, in that scenario in the workplace, how is that going to work for the employer? They'll just lose money. They won't be efficient for them. So I understand why they're sort of like pushing back at the idea. I kind of get it. I wish they wouldn't, but I see where they're coming from. No idea we can just throw disabled people back into the workplace. Remembering there's so many caveats, so many different conditions, whether it be something mental health, whether it be lost a limb or in the wheelchair or whatever, or whether it be fibromyalgia, whether it be long COVID, all these conditions. Unless we actually have the ability to actually open up and have a support network for all these different things, all these different conditions, how is it ever going to work? It'll end up costing more money than what it actually produces. Just like support, carers allowance and stuff like that. People have their carers allowance removed at the moment for various stupid reasons because they got like 10 quid more than they should have done. You know, it just, the amount of money they're saving the social, the care system, social care. When we haven't got enough social carers as it is, why are we trying to push them back? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And as somebody's brought up a disabled child, who is now a man, a middle-aged man, you know, it distresses me, actually, it upsets me. It really does, because there's plenty of people that we know who were in a similar boat, friends that who were in a similar boat to what we were, and if this would made it impossible for them, you know. There's a boo about having the NHS and having the support structure, is because it supports those who are less fortunate, those who don't get handed, dealt the same cards as everybody else. That's what it's there for. It's called insurance policy. That's what it's called, the national insurance. Okay, probably a bit more money as well, but Anyway, what do you reckon? Please leave in the comments down below, but please hit the like button and maybe subscribe to the channel, because you get one positive in your pocket every time I upload another video. It helps the channel as well, I need all the help I can get. We're doing rewilding here. Can you see these trees? Yeah, we're planting lots and lots of trees. In fact, we've got an arbour to put over there, and thanks to Ray. Cheers, Ray. And if you want to have a tree, I'll plant a tree on your behalf, but also make a sign to go with the tree with name on, or maybe a memory of a loved one, or maybe a newborn. Yeah, or even a pet. Toodaloo.